Hey, everyone. Welcome to Locked On Lakers for Tuesday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. What's going on with LeBron James's foot, Andy? How big a problem is this going to be? That's next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everyone for making Locked On Lakers your first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, sometimes on Saturdays and Sundays. You are getting fresh Lakers content that is always free. It's never going to be behind a paywall. And Locked On Lakers, the exploding YouTube channel, it is going viral, Andy, I think is what the kids say.
That's what the numbers say, if nothing else.
That's right. And so big support for that channel. The traffic is increasing. The interaction between you guys on that channel is increasing a lot. We're seeing all kinds of great stuff that is giving us inspiration for segments on the show. So thank you very much for the support there. We really appreciate it. Please keep supporting it. Keep leaving comments on it, and get all your friends to subscribe. You're all very popular people. Get your friends to subscribe. So the Lakers lose in Brooklyn on Monday. Final score there, 121-104. We talked about this, Andy, going into the game, that this was in part becoming kind of a scheduled loss because the Lakers sat LeBron James and they sat Anthony Davis for maintenance, or so we hoped. It was revealed, and we'll get to a little bit bits of the game that are relevant in a second here, but it was hoped that it was just maintenance. But Darvin Ham said before the game that LeBron's dealing some pretty significant pain in the foot that's kind of got, and foot and ankle that's had him questionable basically for every game this season.
Yeah, and piggybacking onto that, Darvin was non-committal about the prospect of LeBron playing tonight against the Knicks. He's going to have everything evaluated, obviously, this morning, but reading a quote from a tweet, I should say, from Christian Winfield, who covers the Nets, when asked if the Lakers were worried LeBron would miss extended time, given the phrasing of his description of Bron's foot soreness, Darvin said, "We don't want to get ahead of ourselves." That could be taken.
That's not no.
I was going to say that could be taken a couple different ways. And look, I guess I really wish that Christian Winfield had been a little bit more, I think, explicit with tone, because it could have been like, "Oh, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves here. Calm down, everybody." Or it could have been, "Yeah, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but."
Let me tell you something. If the answer is no, you can get ahead of yourself. Ask me if I'm concerned about like my foot, keeping me out of work tomorrow. Nope, not at all concerned. No worries about getting ahead of yourself there, Andy. If the answer is no, we're not concerned, then no, you don't have to worry about getting ahead of yourself. And this gets to an interesting question because we were asked, you said on Twitter, following the game, once on the Sunday's game, and then on Monday when we learned the news that especially that LeBron would be playing, that the hope is that it's not more than something just like maintenance. And
but it immediately crossed my mind,
right?
That they made a decision that quickly. Immediately crossed my mind. And again, I acknowledge the possibility of they just decided, particularly coming off overtime in Boston, that maybe they would need to sit, certainly AD, which it seems like it is purely maintenance.
He still hasn't started a game.
Right. So in AD's case, I think it really is purely maintenance, but that they made that decision that quickly could have just been expediency, but it had me a bit concerned, and it turned out my concern warranted.
And, like Kobe, LeBron, you almost got to saw LeBron's foot off for him to miss a game, the one visit of the year to Madison Square Garden. These are games that players like LeBron, players like Kobe, nobody likes to miss the game. Skip the Barclays Center. That's fine. Nobody wants to miss the game. The one visit a year to MSG.
And he was suspended last year.
Oh, I'd forgotten about that. You're right.
Yeah. LeBron had been suspended last year because of that skirmish with Isaiah Stewart from the Pistons, the one where LeBron inadvertently left Stewart bloody and Stewart lost his damn mind.
He was
no other way to put it.
He was really upset.
Yeah.
It complicates a little bit a very interesting question, though, that the Lakers have, which is, if this is a playoff game, I'm just going to presume, for the sake of argument, a playoff game, LeBron can play. Playoff game, he could play on Tuesday. But we're not there yet. And the Lakers are in this big hole now. They're back to 5 games under 500. And it's, they got a difficult road trip to finish out here and all that. And where do you draw the line here on when these rest games have? I got an interesting tweet from Parker Swenson at Parker Swenson 10 on Twitter. And by the way, I don't know if it's he or she, because the profile picture is a man and a girlfriend or a wife or someone, and then the insert picture are the same 2 people. And Parker Swenson can be a boy's name or a girl's name. So I don't know which one of you sent this tweet or who owns the account, but whoever it is asks, at what point in this season do the Lakers stop taking these scheduled losses? It seems to me they gave up that luxury after a 2-10 start. And I get the sentiment, but the answer is, to me at least, is still you can't give up those scheduled losses, because if either one of those guys gets hurt, like in a meaningful, sustained way, every game becomes a scheduled loss at that point.
Yeah, I mean, you can't reasonably expect a 38-year-old in year 20 with LeBron's mileage to just play through blank, like in the regular season, in the playoffs. Yeah, I think LeBron, basically, if it is humanly possible, would play through basically anything. Mm-hmm. But, there is a pragmatic, practical matter involved with, if you run LeBron too far into the ground and really exacerbate something going on with the foot or the ankle or the groin that has been problematic ever since he joined this team, he could end up missing enough games that whether or not he could play through the playoffs is an irrelevant question, because the Lakers won't make it.
Right.
But I think for a lot of fans, it becomes difficult when they keep hearing LeBron talk about having no margin for error, which is true. But then it seems like the team, and in some respects, LeBron, is accepting the idea of scheduled losses. It's like, basically, there is an argument for being practical on both sides. Like, both sides of this argument can make a case for being practical and realistic.
I would say that the margin, the reason that there is no margin for error is in part because stuff like this is baked in. There is a limit as to what you can do physically with the roster, with LeBron and AD. Because look, as much as, and we'll talk about this in the next segment, because Lakers social media, Lakers Twitter, I'm sure the YouTube channel tomorrow is just, it was a combination of sad and angry. It was sangry. And I think people are just frustrated. Like, there's this invisible wall that seems to prevent the Lakers, who have shown tremendous promise at different times, in terms of just being able to be a valid team this year. Like, this is a team worth resurrecting. They play really hard. They're actually much easier to root for than last year's team, probably even a couple years ago's team. But
they play hard. They play hard all the time. They do not give up in games. They didn't give up in this game. Like, they lost by a good spread, but it was ultimately because they got out to an early deficit. They rallied pretty hard. In the third quarter, they took the lead again, but they had always this combination of self-imposed mistakes combined with no margin for error.
Right,
which has
because
been,
it's who's the best player. Let's do this after the break, because like I said, there's this sort of sense that I'm getting from fans, frustration building up, and almost a resignation that, God, it doesn't matter what they do, they can't get real forward momentum. So let's talk about that next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are here. Super Bowl is coming up, and we are excited about having our new sports betting partner for Locked On, because they are the #1 sports book in America, FanDuel. If you're new to FanDuel, that's even better. Explain why. They have many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. And new customers, you join today, get started with $150 in free bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Just sign up at FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel has all your favorite bets, from the money line to the point spreads, the player props, and you can combine your bets for a chance at an even bigger payout with the same game parlay. It's all on an app that is safe, secure, super easy to use. So football fans, big game coming up. Do not miss out. Place your first $5 bet to get $150 in free bets, win or lose, at FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
So, on this topic, Andy, of scheduled losses or whatever you want to call it, like, I feel like it's baked in, but this is just where they, like, the whole team, even when they make progress, it's still based on and doesn't work without LeBron James and Anthony Davis playing at sort of an all-world level. Like, both of those guys have to be not just good, but great, and that elevates the rest of the roster, which may be a little bit better than we gave it credit for. Certainly has had its moments. Different players have ebbed and flowed, but there always seems to be enough there to make the team competitive every night. But I just can't get past the idea that you have to treat LeBron and AD with the utmost of care, no matter what the record says, because beyond the moral aspects of playing guys when they shouldn't, they, like you said, they just can't win if those guys aren't healthy.
Well, they can't win big picture. Like, they are not going to be in the position to really try to make playoff noise if those guys end up hurting themselves, because they shouldn't be out on the floor in the first place. But if they're not out on the floor in the first place, you're not going to put yourself in a position where you could even make a playoff run that you're looking to preserve them for. And that's the catch-22. That's the double-edged sword. And what I think is really interesting about this, beyond the fact that there really is no correct, perfect way to handle it, and this got exacerbated by the Lakers getting off to a 2-10 start and an AD missing half the season, essentially.
Yeah, basically.
And, let's be honest, if the Western Conference were not an unusual outlier for this season, they'd be cooked. They'd be done already. Like,
right.
This is
a Western Conference with incredible parity and the opportunity to get in. All you got to do is be the 10th seed to get to play it.
Right. I mean, in any normal season, even a normal season with a play-in, the Lakers might already be, for all intents and purposes, save a miracle, done. What makes this, though, I think, really an interesting question beyond just how it affects this season is it speaks to the complications of a team that is built around LeBron James in year 20, next year in year 21, and Anthony Davis, fragile while in his prime. And on one hand, you have these two players that are awesome together. They are perfectly matched. They play extremely well off each other. They really enjoy playing with each other. They enjoy each other off the court. They are, by all appearances, really tight. They have great chemistry as people and as teammates. And obviously, if those two are healthy, regularly available, you can build around that.
Mm-hmm.
But if they are not, and in particular, if Anthony Davis is not regularly available, because he's the one that logically should be available more, it speaks to the difficulties and complications and questions that come with this. Like, no matter what you think of Rob Pelinka and Jeannie Buss as the highest shot callers in this organization and mistakes that they've made that we've covered ad nauseum, doesn't change the fact that they have a legitimately complicated question heading into the trade deadline and heading into this offseason. Like, what do you do? This would be a difficult question for whoever you think is the best GM in the league.
I think if you're looking for hopeful signs, the Hachimura deal at least points to the idea that they might try to, instead of swinging for the fences and instead of doing, quite frankly, the Laker thing, which is, stars or bust or whatever it is, take this $30 million that they've got to work with and chop it up into a few different pieces. And some of that maybe goes to Hachimura in an extension. And we'll see how he plays for the rest of the year. Obviously that makes a difference. And, he did some good things, but I'll make a second point here in a second, but like, if that's what they do, then it immediately takes them out of the running for any of the bigger name free agents, even especially in kind of a thin year. Now you're talking about adding maybe another player through a trade, or you sign a guy for $12 million and trade for another $8 million guy into space, or whatever it might be. And you're building up depth as opposed to doing it, these big swings and just saying, we have so much star talent, we're going to fill it in with minimum guys. Because look, Troy Brown played, I think his best game as a Laker on Monday. Would you disagree? 11 points, 17 rebounds, 4 assists. He had 2 turnovers, with all that in 31 minutes, made some great passes, handled the ball well.
Career highs in both rebounds, 17, and also offensive rebounds. He had 7 offensive rebounds.
He was great. It was hard to, Thomas Bryant, 7 of 8 from the floor, 9 rebounds, 18 points. Like,
Wenyen Gabriel scored 9 straight points.
Right. But these are all fundamentally limited players. And like, you're asking a lot to kind of hit the lottery with minimum guys every year. Bryant, as good as he is offensively, really is not good on the other end of the floor. He tries. He's game. He's not lazy as a defender. He's just not very good at it. Wenyen had some great moments in this game. He's also minus 18. And I realize that's not always the best shorthand. Lonnie Walker's defense, quite frankly, has fallen off a cliff. And people would be like, oh, he's just a $10 million guy, $12 million. He's just an average NBA player. Average means that half the guys in the league are worse. Like, average is meaningfully important in this league. If you have 2 guys who are elite, like the Lakers do, 3 or 4 who are above average, and like 4 average guys like that, you have a really good team. People kind of poo-poo average like it sucks. No, sucks. Average is good. You're right in the middle. The Lakers need more right in the middle.
Yeah. And, in this game in particular, 2 of the 3, I would say, between Russell Westbrook, Dennis Schroeder, and Rui Hachimura, like the guys that you would look towards to really step up in terms of scoring. Russ and Schroeder had brutal nights from the field. Russ was 5 of 15. I believe Schroeder was 2 of 15.
Pat Bev was 1 of 8. Dennis Schroeder was 2 of 15. Hachimura was a more respectable 6 of 13.
Right.
But still not wildly efficient, but better. 16 points on 13 shots. Westbrook had 17 points on 15 shots. Those are your offensive catalysts.
And Lonnie Walker, if you want to throw him in there, 4 of 9 for 13, which if you had LeBron and AD out there, that'd be fine. But you see the limitations of asking these guys,
they bled points when Walker was on the floor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's one thing to ask Rui Hachimura to be your 4th or 5th option. He is very well suited for that. It's another thing to ask him to be your 1st, 2nd, maybe your 3rd. that is the reason that ultimately the Wizards decided he was expendable, which
Yep.
doesn't mean he can't be useful for this player, this team at full strength. You and I both like this deal, and we like the idea of the Lakers taking a pretty low-cost flyer on him. I think this year the Lakers have done much, much better with their minimum, veterans minimum guys this year than last year. Like their veterans minimum guys have been far better this year than last year.
Yes, and they were but it's still
a disadvantage.
We're gonna have a discussion about Darvin, I think probably deeper on another day. And I don't mean this to absolve him of criticism, especially on a night like Monday where you're missing your 2 stars and you're missing Austin Reeves. The shortcoming, you can't mix and match these players who might have one skill and are lacking in other places. And it gets really hard to mix and match these guys, even players like Wenyen Gabriel that fans like, or, people want to see Max Christie in the lineup. Go take a look at Max Christie's net rating in the last 15 games. He's not having, I think he's going to be a good player in this league, and he's had good moments. And you can get by playing Christie, I think, most effectively, kind of like Reeves last year, when he's with LeBron, when he's with AD, when he's surrounded by a structure. Games like Monday, you can't do it. Like he's getting torched.
He had a rough go.
And, he's had a rough go because he's a 19-year-old second-round pick. And so, he just hasn't been effective, even if you see, he made a jump shot here. The floor time doesn't reflect a lot of impact. Whereas with Reeves last year, you could kind of look at it and be like, or Caruso, like you could kind of keep looking and be like, the numbers sustain themselves in terms of net rating and all these other things that you can kind of look at as shorthand. So we'll get to some of these Darvin things over the course of the week. I do want to note a very, very controversial member of the Lakers roster had a very cool milestone tonight, and Lakers fans, not all of them really were interested in that. So we'll talk about Russell Westbrook next. So, Andy, Russell Westbrook on Monday moved into the top 10 all-time in assists. That is really impressive. Yep. And I'm trying, I made the mistake of clicking off the tweet. Here we go. So you very graciously, Andy, you said, in light of Russell Westbrook hitting number 10 on the all-time assist list, I also thought about how he's currently 33rd in scoring, which is remarkably high for a prolific playmaker. Case in point, the only players higher than him on both lists are Oscar Robertson and LeBron.
Yeah.
Not everyone, Andy, was here for your praise. This from Waleed Chowdhury, follows us on Twitter. Yeah, this is not the time to be mentioning his accomplishments. Not only do we not care, they are the reason his play is at a level it is right now, given how they feed his ego and make him needlessly defiant and boneheaded. So, also congratulations. I think the subtext of that was also, but congratulations. But you get, there was a lot of that going around tonight. Nobody is interested in Russell Westbrook's accomplishments.
Yeah, well, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean,
it gets, I mention this because it gets to the frustration of this season.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, it doesn't get to the frustration of this season. This gets to the frustration of Russell Westbrook's entire tenure as a Laker. And
yes, also last season.
In some ways too, it speaks to who Russell Westbrook has been his whole career, which is very polarizing, other than, I think, really the one season that, the year that he won MVP and the season where he really had to go it alone, and I think was seen in a lot of ways as an underdog, especially after Kevin Durant went to the Warriors and basically stacked the championship team to a place where, assuming everybody was healthy, they were absolutely unbeatable. And Westbrook committed long-term to the small market Thunder, and I think that was the one year where Russ was really considered, again, kind of an underdog bucking the odds. But he's been polarizing his whole career. The last few years he was with Durant, he was seen as the guy not just holding back the Thunder, but holding back Durant himself. And he's been polarizing in all these other stops where he's been a journeyman, frankly. And he's been polarizing as a Laker. And I get where people feel that way, and I'm not looking to argue it. It doesn't change the fact that being among 3 people this high on both lists for scoring and assists is effing incredible. Like, it doesn't, both things can be true at once. Russell Westbrook can be an incredibly frustrating experience, and he is an incredibly unique talent in NBA history. Both can be true.
There are still people who ask, like, are we sure Russell Westbrook is a Hall of Famer? Yes, we are.
Yeah,
we are
pretty damn
100. Sure. Is he the Hall of Famer I would build my team around? He is not. Is he a Hall of Famer? Oh yeah, he is. People ask that about Dwight Howard, like, because the second half of his career was obviously pretty checkered. It's like, yes, Dwight Howard is a first ballot. If Dwight Howard never played for the Lakers, just walked away from the game after Orlando, he was a Hall of Famer. It's like, stop, people.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting too. I got a tweet from @Lakeshow_Royco, Logan's Heroes. Does Russ have the greatest delta between his numbers and real contribution to high-level winning out of anybody in NBA history and sports history? Or is that an unfair/inaccurate characterization? I don't have as much historical knowledge, so I'm genuinely curious. I'm not a true basketball NBA historian, even though I think I know the history of the sport reasonably well. I actually think it's an unfair characterization because I'm looking right now, for example, Russell Westbrook has been part of teams that made the playoffs 11 out of 12 consecutive seasons. Like, Russell Westbrook has been a part of a lot of winning. Has he been the focal point or driving force of a championship team? No. Has he always been a wholly reliable force of postseason wins? No. Again, he is an imperfect player. But Russell Westbrook, by any reasonable measure, has been around a lot of winning. He just has. It is one thing you and I have, we've stressed this a lot, Brian, like in our time covering the league, we've done it a lot interacting with fans, and we like it. Like, we like that part of it. But one thing we've come to realize is, particularly among Laker fans who have been spoiled by a lot of winning, you lose sight of how hard it is. Winning is hard in this league. It's really hard. Russell Westbrook has been around a lot of winning.
A lot of it. It's winning a title. Winning titles, I mean, it's a Jordan thing, and it's the count the rings thing and whatever, but
and in this town, it's a Kobe thing.
It is. We have reduced winning in basketball to the will and talent of individual people. As if Steve Nash somehow just wasn't strong enough and didn't gird up his loins enough to win a title. Like
he played a game where he couldn't stop bleeding from his face.
And Karl Malone say what you want about Karl, but as a basketball player, hard to argue with Karl Malone as your guy. It's like if Jordan doesn't take 2 years off, Olajuwon may not win a title. You're gonna tell me Hakeem Olajuwon didn't have the eye of the tiger or whatever you need? But like, so much of this is just luck and circumstances. Like I one of my favorite exchanges with Kobe that I think gets to the mindset of these guys is, I asked him once, we were talking about kind of the what ifs, like, what if you had been drafted, Jersey is like, stop it with your voodoo, Jerry West, we're going to take Kobe, we're going to draft him. And Jersey was a perfectly credible organization at that point. I was like, do you think you win 5 titles? You think you have the same level of success that you had?
Or just Charlotte keeps him?
Whatever. However you want to do it. He said, absolutely. He said, I'd figured it out. And to some extent, there is truth to that. Like, he still, I think, would have, like, all the things that made Kobe, he would have been in the gym at 4 a.m. in New Jersey. He would have been, annoying people with his intensity in Charlotte. He would have, all of that stuff would have stayed 100% true. But those organizations also wouldn't have gotten Shaquille O'Neal, and they wouldn't have gotten all the other stuff. It's like they might not have traded for, like, you need the context and luck and all of these other things matter. And Russell Westbrook has things about him that make him very difficult to build perfect teams around. He is an imperfect superstar in that regard. In the same way, like Allen Iverson was an imperfect superstar, whatever. But it doesn't mean Allen Iverson's not a Hall of Famer. There's just, like, we have this thing, like, wouldn't it be great? Max Kellerman, our old colleague at ESPN, said this beautifully about Kobe. He says about it would be great if they were even greater. Like, if, nobody's perfect. You could find those tiny little flaws in a guy like Kobe and fix them, or Westbrook and fix them. They're bigger in Westbrook and fix them. But just because they could be greater doesn't mean that they aren't great. And, Westbrook is not great anymore, and the Lakers really screwed up by trading for him. But if you're talking about his entire career, stop it. Just stop it. Like, he's a bad influence on this team now, but he's been in the league a long time.
Russ has been around a lot of winning. And I think you can be as frustrated as hell with this guy and want the Lakers to trade him, or just remain upset that they ever made this highly risky move in the first place. I get it. I wasn't wild about it to begin with, but Russ's career.
Andy, just as a reminder to people, we did an entire show the week before the trade, as the rumors were coming out, talking about how it couldn't possibly be true because there's no way the Lakers would make a trade that bad. It was our second highest trafficked podcast of that year.
Right. But again, it doesn't change the fact that Russ has had a pretty incredible career. Yep. And let's maintain perspective.
All right. So Locked On Lakers, we'll get back to, I promise, we'll get back to all the trashing the guy, all the things people want, because he's not playing well right now. And it's
not
problematic.
Yes,
even the good moments are balanced by too many bad ones, and his impact on the offense when he tries to cook, so to speak, is really negative. The ball
ironic. It is ironic that he ended up passing Peyton tonight, because he began the game not looking to pass at all. Mm-mm. He eventually made some brilliant passes. He had 10 assists in this game.
He always does. He always ends up making brilliant, but they're just everything. It's just not. It's too much. It's extra.
Yeah, it is.
But anyway, Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go to see the show and become part of a great Lakers community that is growing incredibly fast, thanks to all your support there. We will be back after Tuesday's game. Hopefully LeBron and AD play. Lakers got to win this one. Then, maybe you go into New Orleans and you steal, that game against a slumping Hornets team. You got that left on this trip. I'm sorry, Pelicans team. Wrong city. Whatever. Anyway, see everyone on Wednesday.